Mr. Tumnus.
Well,
Bottom of my trouser is right.
Well, the question is, what would it be like to grow up with C.S. Lewis? Let's find out.
All right, let's see.
People see C.S. Lewis on the spines of books. Clive Staples Lewis, the great scholar, the great writer. But to me, he wasn't C.S. Lewis at all. He was just Jack. To us, to family, it was always Jack. He was a man who first became my friend and later my stepfather. And eventually Jack was the man I admired and respected and loved most in all the world. My brother and I first came to Oxford in 1953 when I was still 8 years old. I was being taken to meet C.S. Lewis, the man who was on speaking terms with High King Peter of Narnia and Aslan the Great Lion. I kind of expected him to be wearing silver armour and carrying a sword and probably had a charger stabled out in the background somewhere. And instead, when I came through the back door of this house, the Kilns, there was this balding, stooped, professorial-looking gentleman in the most shabby clothes you can imagine, and trod down at the heels slippers and nicotine-stained fingers and teeth. Jack looked very strange to me as an 8-year-old American boy. But soon, he became so much more. Jack was a fellow of English at Magdalen, Oxford for, I think, almost 30 years. And he would take us walking out around the university. Because I was with Jack, and because he was who he was, I got all sorts of privileges that other people didn't have. I felt so chuffed that I could zoom around on the grass and go up Magdalen Tower and get into the deer park, and nobody else could. You know, it was wonderful. The movie Shadowlands is a wonderful rendition, slightly fictionalized, of how Jack and my mother got together and what happened as a result of that. First of all, it started as a pen friendship. And then my mother became rather ill in America, and it was decided by her doctor she should take a long break from everything and go overseas somewhere. She'd always longed to go to England. And while she was here, she was going to see if she could meet C.S. Lewis. And so she wrote to him, and he said, sure, come along and say hello. And that's exactly how they met. And a lot of people think my mother was hunting Jack as a gold digger kind of situation, which is absolutely nonsense. I'm glad to see the house is so well looked after. The C.S. Lewis Foundation, Redlands, California, bought the house and have gone to great pains to restore it back to what it would have been in the 1950s. It's very similar to the way we had it when we lived here. The 8 acres that the house sits in, most of that was sold and destroyed by developers. But the lake and the wood up above is still more or less as it was when we were here. Now, this is where I spent a great deal of my childhood. It is, without doubt, a magical place. And right now, it's just hauntingly Narnia. One expects a faun or a centaur to appear at any moment. Many people regard Jack as being an intellectual, bookish character who locked himself in his study in a dim light and scribbled away. He wasn't like that at all. He was, in a way, quite athletic. I mean, he used to go for huge walks across the countryside and all of that sort of thing. Loved climbing up the hill here and going up onto Shotover. One often doesn't think of Jack as being the heroic type. But he'd fought through the First World War, and there was a great deal of the pure physical courage remaining in the man. He was an amazing character. Being a child here had enormous advantages. The learning advantages were huge. I mean, there were great occasions between my mother and my Jack at the dining table in the dining room next door. Jack and my mother used to play Scrabble, but they had their own rules. And they would play Scrabble using all known languages, factual or fictional. All you had to do was be able to prove that the word you were using actually did exist in some book somewhere in the house, and you got away with it. They would sort of tone it down for my benefit, but there was no hope of me ever winning. But I know that Jack and my mother, in the time of her remission, had probably the 4 happiest years of their lives. My mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer when I was 10. She died when I was 14. My father then committed suicide a year and a half later in America, and Jack died a year and a half after that. So it was a pretty traumatic childhood in a sense. Everyone I ever loved died. This whole area holds a great many attachments to me, but they're no longer this kind of heavy, grieving, morose emotion they used to be. I can quite cheerfully go down to the grave and look at it and say, well, there you are, old boy, you know, see you soon.
Well, thank you for all of the pictures that you've sent in and the stuff you found in your wardrobes. We've got a 5-foot swordfish beak, a mannequin arm,
and a life-size Matt Smith. Tomorrow